Hey guys, and welcome back for another video. This is going to be another one in our series on web development examples from scratch, where we're going to build something without using any frameworks or libraries, so no Angular or Bootstrap or React or anything like that. So what we're going to do is build a master detail page, which gives us the ability to switch between different pages and see the content update as we do. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right, so like I said, we're building this master detail concept. So if you've never heard of this, it's really common in like iOS development, master detail. But basically, it's the idea that you've got kind of a list of different pages or different sections of content that you want to see, and you want to have the master over here, which is how you choose the page, and then your detail is actually the content for that specific page. So one of the things that I wanted to do is make this responsive. So if we come down to a smaller screen, and we can actually do just a mobile test here. Notice it gives us a back button, so it's actually kind of a page transition is what it looks like. It simulates a page transition where you've got your page for your master, and then clicking on one of the details goes to the detail page. So this is a pretty common pattern that you'll see in mobile development, and then you'll see it in web development, even if it's not specifically referred to as a master detail. So that's what we're going to build. Over here on the left, we've got an index HTML, an app.js, and an app CSS. So we're going to do a little bit of HTML, a little bit of JavaScript, and a little bit of CSS as well. So let's go ahead and get started building this out. And what we want to do, I'm going to create just an H1 here. And I'm going to be using emmet snippets or emmet abbreviations. So if you're not familiar with this, take a look at it. It's definitely going to help you write code faster, and it's going to help me. So H1, and then doing a dot, I can start adding classes. So title and text center. So this is going to be an H1 with a class of title and a class of text center. And then it's just going to be master detail. And save this. And I'm using live server to do a reload here, a live reload as we build stuff. It's going to show up here and show it as we go. So it's going to be good. All right. So then we want a div with a class of container. And if we want to do a div, we don't have to type in an element here, just dot and then container will give us what we're looking for, a div with a class of container there. And what we want to do is we want to have basically a section in here for our master and then a section in here for our detail. So we'll have a div again here with a class of call-3, and we'll see that in a second, and then a class of master. And then inside of that, we're going to have all of our master items. So we want to have a div with a class of master item. All right. And then I can do a multiply of this to get 4. So multiply times 4. That's going to give me 4 of these. And then inside of here, we'll just do option 1, option 2, and now we've got all 4 of our options. All right, so the next one we want to do, we want to have another div here to represent our detail. So we'll have a class of call-9 and a class of detail. Now you're probably already, if you've done any Bootstrap, you're probably familiar with the grid system. So these call-3 and call-9 is basically just kind of telling it how much width we want the column for master to take up. So if you notice here, if you think about like a 12 point grid system or a 12 column grid system, the call-3 says we want to take up the first 3 columns, and the call-9 says we want to take up the last 9 columns. So 3 plus 9 obviously adds up to 12, so it's going to put them side by side. All right, and then we need to add inside of detail, we want to add 2 things. That little back button that we saw, so we'll do a button with an ID of back button, and then a class of hidden MD. So what this says is when you apply this class and you're on a medium size screen or up, we want to hide it because we don't need to show a back button when we're on a bigger screen, because we're not taking up the entire screen to show our master. You see everything in one view here. So that's basically saying we're hiding this. If it's medium or smaller is when we're gonna hide it. And then we just want the content here to be back. And I'm gonna do just kind of to simulate a back arrow. We'll do this, and let's come back and see what we got here in our live reload. So here's our back button. Here's our options for master detail. Here's our title. And now we can come into our CSS and start to style some of this stuff. So let's start with our master class, and we'll do some basic stuff. So padding 25 pixels, border none, box sizing, border box. And then our height is going to be 100 VH, which is just basically 100% of the viewport height. So we'll save this. You see we've got a little bit of our padding here. And now we'll come in, we'll add our hidden medium class. And this is going to be display inline. And then we'll need to do so there it is down here. We're going to need to do a media query to get this, to get it hidden on the sizes that we want. So we'll do that in a little bit. All right, so then we'll come in and we'll add a class for our text center. So this is one that you'll see in Bootstrap as well. It's just a text line to center, and it's going to center the master detail up here. So we can work on our master item. So master item, and then we'll select the hover, and then we'll select the active item class as well. So if it's active or if you're hovering on it. All right, so then we want to change the background, and we're going to get kind of that green color there. So let's paste that in here. So we'll change the background. We'll do a color is white, so we'll change the font color to white, and then the cursor is a pointer just to let them know that they can click on that to select something. So now if we come over here and hover, we should see now we get that little hover effect. All right, and with that, we want to work on the master item. And so we can set the font size to 24 pixels, border, bottom, and I probably did this a little bit out of order, but that's okay. I'll paste in this color as well. So let's save that. We'll see, got a little bit of border there. We'll change the color to be that border as well. And then we'll add some padding, 15 pixels to give it a little bit of space. That looks pretty good, and we get our little hover effect here. And skipped style in the style, or the title above. So our title is going to be font size of 32. Border bottom of 2 pixels solid, and then our green color again. Padding we'll do 15 pixels again, and color is going to be our green color again. So now we should see that looks pretty much like what this looks on the mobile version, basically, because this is taking up the entire width right now. Because basically these are divs, they're taking up the entire width, and then they're stacking on top of each other as divs do. So now we've got some of these classes taken care of. Let's see, what else are we going to do next? So one of the things that we want to do is on a phone, we basically want all these things to take up the entire space. So we can actually come in, and I'm just going to paste this in. We can grab anything that has a class of call dash. So this class star equals means anything that's got a class of call dash something. When we're on phones, when we're on smaller devices, we want the width to be 100, and we want to float to the left. So this is not much is going to change here because they were divs and taking up the entire space anyway. But we'll see in a second that this is going to change once we start working on these call 3 and call 9 classes. And we are kind of doing our mobile responsiveness here, our responsive design. One of the thought processes is to start mobile first, so that's why we're doing the default is to take up the entire width, and then for bigger screens, we'll customize this to fit for our bigger screens the way we want to as well. So a couple more classes that we're gonna add: our detail class, so the detail content. I'm gonna copy in. This is basically the same kind of stuff that we just saw for the other one. So I'm gonna copy in some of these styles: padding, box sizing. Position, Z index, make sure these are going to be on top as we start switching between screens, because basically we're just going to pop content on top. And then height is going to take up the entire viewport height as well. And then you set the color and the background color, color and background. We could be more specific here to be color. All right, so there's some stylings for detail. And then we've got our container class, which by default for mobile is going to be position relative. All right, and then I'm going to come in, I'm going to copy some styles for our back button, because this is not the real important piece of this. So there's some styles for our back button that will, and I changed up how I label these. So here's some styles for our back button just to make it kind of fit the rest of what we got going on. So here's our back button up here, and then so we've got the styles for our back button, and this is absolutely positioned. So we've got it, it's inside of the, let's see, the detail section here, and so the button is just absolutely positioned, or absolute position, to be kind of in this top left area. And so what we've done, we've got our detailed section. Let's look at our elements here. We've got our detail section being absolute as well. So by default on mobile, we want this, the detail, to be 100% of the view height, and we want absolute position, which will put it kind of in this the top right of the container. Now, because the container is relative, when we do detail to be absolute, it means it's absolutely positioned relative to its parent. So now let's get into a little bit of our media query stuff. So some of our responsive design. So let's do a media query, and we want to set a min width to be 786 pixels. Now what we want to accomplish in here is, remember right now all of our columns are taken up 100% and they're float left. So on these bigger screens, that's on our mobile devices, our smaller devices, we want them to actually take up the amount of width that we want them to. So our call 3 is going to be basically 3/12, which is going to be 25%. So we'll say width is going to be 25%. And then our call 9 is going to be similar, but it's going to be not width, or not windows, but width of 75%. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to change our detail section to be a position of static, so that it's not absolutely positioned anymore. And now we'll see that our detail section, we don't have anything in it yet, but we've got our master items over here, our detail section over here, which takes up 75%. Then our back button, which we want to hide on some of these bigger screens. So our hidden MD class, we want to do a display of none. So this is going to hide our button or anything with the hidden MD on anything greater than a width of 786. So we'll go ahead and do this, and now that button's going to disappear. And now we're pretty close to what we're looking at here. We just need to add some JavaScript to dynamically change the content that we've got. And one more thing that we can add, because we're on these bigger screens and we're dividing the sections, we can add a border right to our master just to kind of differentiate itself. Oh, nope, I want this green color here, just to kind of differentiate it from the detail contents. Now we should see we've got this little border here, and we can select one. And now we'll just go into our JavaScript and update to change the content there. And let's actually make sure when we come to master detail on mobile, now we've got our back button, and we don't want to apply that all the time. So we'll see that in a second. And right now, remember that our detailed section is absolutely positioned with a z index of 11. If I did -1, that would not sit on top. The master would sit on top. So basically all we're doing is we're letting the detail section sit on top of master, and then we're showing or hiding the detail section to then show or hide the master. So it's really, it's kind of not too complicated of an idea, but it does get a little tricky. So the first couple things we want to do is get reference to a couple of these elements. So we'll get a query selector for our .detail, and then detail title, which we actually forgot to add. So we need to come back in here, and underneath our button, we need to have an H1, with a class of detail title, and then text center as well. And it's going to start by default with option 1. And this actually would have been pretty useful earlier to see. So now when we update, we should see option 1. I'll give this a capital O here. And if I come on a bigger screen, we'll see option 1 to the right as a detail, and then our master on the left. And basically, we're just going to swap out the content for this option 1 is what we're going to do. All right, so let's come back to the JavaScript, and we wanted to get a reference to the detail title, which is what we just added. And then we want to get the master items get all of those, because there's going to be a couple of them. They're going to have the class of master item. All right. So now we want, let's just leave it on the big screen for now. So first we want to come in and iterate through each of these master items and set the click handler for each one. So let's come in and we'll do, master items for each. And this is going to give us each item and then, or actually, a callback function that passes in the item. And for each of these, we want to register the event handler. So we'll do item.add event listener, and we want to listen for the click event. And then we want to not use arrow functions. So we want to use a full callback function. So we'll do it this way because we want to access the this keyword inside of this callback. If we had done an arrow function here, and you guys might have to kind of do some research to figure out what I'm talking about if you're not familiar with ES6 arrow functions. If we would have done an arrow function, the this keyword inside of here would not have been what we wanted. So every time, let's just console log here. Console log clicked item, save that, and let's open up our console just to make sure we're clicking on them. So can I make this big enough to, there we go. Click 1, click 2. All right, so that's cool, that's working. And what we want to do is when we click each one, we want to make sure none of them have the active class. So let's start with option 1 having the active class, or active item class. Now we should see option 1 is active there. All right, so what we want to do is when we come through here, we want to iterate through master items again. So we did a for each earlier. We could also do a for of, so a for item of master items. And we want to remove the class active item. So basically what we want to accomplish here is when we click any of these, we want to get rid of the active item class for all of them. So if I click 2, items is not defined. This should actually be item. Save that. Now if I click 2, 1 should go away and 2 doesn't get highlighted. So the reason we want to do this is we want to clear out, so make sure none of them are selected. Then we want to come in and grab this, which is going to be the element that we clicked on. And we want to go into the class list and we want to add, not an event listener, add the active item class. So that's going to switch which one is selected. So let's start at 1 here, click on 2, and now 2 is active, 3, and so on. And then we want to go in and update the detail title. So I want to update the detail title inner HTML. So we want to set the text of that to be this.inner HTML. So we're going to basically take the text here of the option item and then set it as the text for the detail. So let's save that. And this would obviously get a little more complicated. You would need to set this to some sort of component or kind of a bigger piece of HTML, whatever it is. You can use it, but simple example here, we'll do option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4. So now it looks like one of the things that we're missing is the back button functionality. So we're going to need to grab the back button, and we can set this in, let's see, in our HTML here, back button, and we can just come in and do a click, and we want to call the function back. All right. And in here, we'll just define what the function back is. And anytime, and so this will be on our smaller screens. Let's get on a smaller screen here. Anytime we click this back button, we want to grab our detail element and grab the class list and add a class of hidden MD. want to add a class of hidden MD down. I think we'll need to go in and add this class as well. So let's come up, where's our hidden stuff? So there's hidden MD, and then we want hidden MD down, which is going to hide it on anything smaller than the 786 that we defined before. So this is going to be a display of none. All right, so let's save this, and let's take a look at what we have so far. So in our back button, we want to add the hidden MD down, which should let's console log to make sure this back button is working. So back button pressed. I don't think I triggered it there. Nope. So let's make sure in our HTML, click equals back. And this is actually, I got really ahead of myself. That's an Angular 5 syntax for an on-click. Basically, what we really want is the on-click, not the Angular 5 click. So we press back here, and now we've basically hidden the detail page, and we want to clear out the selected item. So when we come back to master detail, we don't want any of these to be selected. So since we're going to be repeating this, let's call a clear selected function and create that function clear selected, and just paste in that code. So now we can call this again clear selected. All right. So we've got, we're on option 1 here. We click back. Now we've got our options, and we can click option 2. And now we're missing one thing here. When we choose one of these items, we want to go in and then remove from detail. So detail class list, remove that hidden MD down class. Save this and refresh. Now hopefully we'll start with option 1 here. We'll go back. We'll see option 2. And now we can go back, and this should still work on big screen. So now we click option 1, 2, 3, 4, and we get to see how this is kind of responsive and gives you a cool way from scratch to build this master detail page that, again, is pretty common, especially in iOS development, and it's really actually pretty common in web development. Whether or not you see it called master detail, I'm not sure. But that's another example of building something from scratch with web development. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did enjoy what you saw, like, subscribe to the channel, comment below, let me know. Find me on Twitter at JamesQQuick. I would love to hear from you guys to get some feedback or let me know how you feel about the videos. But until next time, I will see you guys in the